Meet Emily, who thought she had the perfect husband until his long-lost sibling crashed into their lives, exposing a web of secrets and lies. She never saw it coming. The way her husband's eyes seemed to glaze over when his sister's name was mentioned, or how he'd hastily change the subject whenever she tried to ask questions. Little did Emily know, this chance encounter would shatter everything they thought they knew about their marriage. Emily and her husband, Ryan, had the kind of marriage everyone envied. They were each other's rock, supporting each other through thick and thin. Their friends would often joke that they were more like soulmates than partners. Emily would often share on social media about their romantic getaways, candlelit dinners, and spontaneous date nights. She'd beam with pride when talking about Ryan's accomplishments, from landing a promotion to coaching his kids' soccer team. They had it all: the perfect home, 2 adorable kids, and a love that only grew stronger with each passing year. Emily trusted Ryan implicitly, never questioning his intentions or actions. In fact, she was known for being fiercely loyal and protective of him. But little did she know, their lives were about to take an unexpected turn. It started with a casual conversation at a family gathering. Ryan's mom mentioned a long-lost sibling he'd been estranged from since childhood. Emily had never heard of this before and brushed it off as just another sibling rivalry story. But what she didn't realize was that the truth was far more complicated, and their lives were about to be forever changed. As if the storm clouds gathering outside their home weren't enough, a new challenge was brewing in the shadows. His sister, Sarah, had finally mustered the courage to reach out after all these years. At first, my partner was thrilled. He'd often spoken about her and his late parents with warmth and affection. But as soon as she arrived, I noticed something off. She would call him multiple times a day, sending him texts that bordered on accusatory. He'd reassure me it was just sibling dynamics, but the tension in our home began to palpably thicken. As the days went by, I started to notice that Sarah would call my partner multiple times a day, sometimes twice in 1 hour. At first, they'd reassure me it was just sibling dynamics, but the tension in our home began to palpably thicken. She'd cancel plans with me at the last minute because she needed to talk to him about something, and when I'd ask what it was, he'd brush me off saying, "Just family stuff." But it wasn't just that. Sarah would show up unannounced at our home, claiming she needed a ride or wanted to drop by for an hour. My partner would immediately jump into help mode, leaving me feeling like an afterthought. I started to feel like I was living in their shadow. One time, Sarah even brought her boyfriend over for dinner without warning us, and my partner seemed completely okay with it. It was as if he'd given up his own life to cater to hers. I couldn't help but wonder, was this what our future held? As the days went by, I started to notice my husband's behavior changing. He'd been distant for a while, but now he was almost detached. We'd be in the middle of a conversation, and he'd suddenly excuse himself to take a call from his sister. Not just any call. Long, drawn-out conversations that would leave him drained and irritable. I'd try to talk to him about it, but he'd brush me off, saying, "Nothing's wrong, I'm fine." But I knew something was. As the days went by, I started to notice small changes in him. He'd get these distant looks on his face when we were talking about our future plans, and he'd start to cancel at the last minute when we had dinner dates with friends. At first, I wrote it off as stress from work, or maybe even a minor health issue. But the more it happened, the more I felt this creeping sense of unease. It was like he was living 2 lives, one in front of me, and another just out of reach. I'd catch him staring at his phone when I walked into the room, and my heart would skip a beat as I wondered who or what could be pulling him away from us. I'll never forget the day Emily finally pieced together the disturbing truth about her husband's sister, Sarah. It started with a series of strange phone calls and texts to their home. At first, Emily thought it was just Sarah being overbearing as usual, but then she stumbled upon an old high school yearbook, and everything clicked into place. As Emily confronted her husband about his sister's behavior, she could see the guilt etched on his face. "What do you mean? What's going on?" he asked, trying to play dumb. But Emily had seen the way his sister looked at him during family gatherings, with a mix of resentment and entitlement. She recalled the time his sister showed up uninvited to their anniversary dinner, claiming she was in town for business. Emily suspected it was more than that. Her husband brushed off her concerns, saying his sister just needed some space after a tough breakup. But, as Emily dug deeper, she discovered a trail of inconsistencies in his sister's story. There were missed phone calls and deleted texts, signs that something more sinister was at play. As the conversation with her husband continued, Emily felt a knot forming in her stomach. She knew he wasn't telling her everything. The way he avoided eye contact, the nervous laughter, it all pointed to one thing: he was hiding something. As we dug deeper into Emily's husband's mysterious behavior, a revelation shook our world to its core. His long-lost sibling Sarah was back in the picture. But what we discovered would change everything. It turned out Sarah had been living a separate life for years, one that included a family of her own, 2 kids and a partner who knew nothing about her complicated past with Emily's husband. At first, I thought maybe she was just trying to reconnect with her brother, but as I learned more, it became clear that Sarah's motives were far from altruistic. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. At first, I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but as the days went by, I started to notice a change in my husband's behavior. He'd be distant, preoccupied, and when I asked him what was wrong, he'd brush it off with a generic nothing. But then I found out that Sarah had been in touch with him again, this time with more frequency and intimacy than ever before. As the days went by, I felt a weight settling in my stomach. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. Sarah's persistence had turned into manipulation, and her husband's involvement only added fuel to the fire. One evening, as we were cooking dinner together, I finally found the strength to confront them both. I called Sarah out on her behavior, telling her how it made me feel, like a pawn in their twisted game of sibling rivalry. Her expression changed from innocence to anger, but I pressed on. "How could you do this to us?" I asked, my voice shaking with emotion. Her husband stepped in, trying to deflect the blame onto Emily's family dynamics. But I wasn't having it. I reminded him that he was a guest in our home, and his actions were impacting our relationship. The room fell silent, and for a moment we just stared at each other. It was a turning point, one where I finally stood up to the people who had been threatening to tear us apart. As the confrontation with her partner's long-lost sibling came to a head, Emily felt like she was standing at a precipice, staring into an abyss of uncertainty. The fallout from that explosive revelation was unlike anything she'd ever experienced before. Every conversation turned into a battle. Every decision became a power struggle, and every attempt at intimacy fell flat. I remember the night we sat on the couch, trying to rebuild what was left of our relationship, but it felt like we were just going through the motions. The tension between us was palpable, like a live wire waiting to spark. The question on my mind, and hers too, was, is this marriage worth fighting for? We'd been married for over a decade, built a life together, and had 2 beautiful kids. But in that moment, it felt like everything we thought we knew about each other was a lie. I looked at her, searching for answers, but all I saw were tears of frustration and desperation. What's next? Would we try to work through the trauma, or would we accept that some wounds are too deep to heal? As I look back on that tumultuous time in our marriage, I'm struck by how blind I was to the warning signs. Our partner's long-lost sibling, Alex, had been a thorn in their side for years, but we'd never met them in person. We'd always known they existed, but it wasn't until Sarah's brother reached out that things escalated. As I dug deeper into Sarah's past, it became clear that her behavior wasn't just about her brother's reappearance. It was a symptom of a larger issue. Growing up in a controlling household can have lasting effects on a person's psyche. For Sarah, being the favored child had created a sense of entitlement and a deep-seated need for control. But when her brother reached out, it awakened a childhood trauma that had been buried beneath the surface. She couldn't bear the thought of losing the spotlight, or worse, being seen as flawed by someone she'd always idolized. I remember Sarah's eyes welling up with tears one day, recounting how her parents would constantly criticize and belittle her brother in front of her. It was a manipulation tactic to keep him in his place, but it had left an indelible mark on both siblings. I realized that Sarah's behavior wasn't just about protecting our marriage. It was about reclaiming a sense of power she'd never truly had as a child. She was acting out the same patterns she'd witnessed growing up, trying to control every aspect of her life and those around her. As we've seen, family dynamics can have a profound impact on relationships. But what happens when those dynamics involve a partner's long-lost sibling? For Sarah, the arrival of her husband's estranged sister was like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode their marriage. At first, she tried to be welcoming and inclusive, but it soon became clear that Emily had an ulterior motive: to wreak havoc on their relationship. She'd manipulate my partner into doing her bidding, playing on his guilt trips, and making him feel responsible for her problems. It was like she had a PhD in emotional manipulation, and my husband was helpless against her charms. I've seen it happen before. The enabler-in-law who siphons energy from the relationship, creating tension and conflict between partners. But what's worse is when the siblings' behavior goes beyond mere interference to sabotage the relationship altogether. That's exactly what happened in Sarah's case. Emily started spreading rumors about me behind my back, trying to drive a wedge between us. It was a painful lesson to learn that family dynamics can sometimes be a toxic force in your life, threatening even the strongest of relationships. When you think of toxic relationships, your partner's family often comes to mind. But what about their siblings? Yes, you read that right. Your partner's long-lost sibling can be a threat to your marriage too. I know it sounds far-fetched, but trust me, it's more common than you think. As I navigated this treacherous terrain, I realized that having a support system in place was crucial to my survival. It's not just about having friends or family members who can offer emotional support. It's about having people who can provide guidance and advice when you need it most. For me, that meant reaching out to a therapist who specialized in relationship dynamics and family conflicts. She helped me understand the complexities of sibling relationships and how they can impact our marriages. I also joined an online community where women were sharing their own stories of dealing with difficult siblings-in-law. It was therapeutic to hear that I wasn't alone, and it gave me the courage to confront my partner about the situation. But seeking help isn't just about talking to others. It's also about being willing to listen to your own intuition. If something feels off or doesn't feel right, trust your instincts and take action. Remember, you don't have to go through this alone. There are people who care and want to help. Don't be afraid to reach out for support when you need it most. As we continue to navigate the complex dynamics with my partner's long-lost sibling, I realized that there are certain legal considerations at play that could have a significant impact on our marriage. For instance, if your partner's sibling is exerting control over their finances or decision-making processes, it may be worth exploring options such as a power of attorney or a court-ordered guardianship. These measures can help protect your partner from being manipulated or taken advantage of. In one case I know of, a woman found herself in a situation where her brother-in-law was making decisions about her sister's business without her knowledge or consent. The sister was not only financially drained but also felt emotionally drained due to the constant pressure and control exerted by her brother-in-law. It took a lot of effort and patience, but with the help of a lawyer, they were able to establish clear boundaries and protect their assets. It's essential to remember that you don't have to go through this alone. Consider seeking advice from a professional who can guide you through the process and provide emotional support during this challenging time. As we navigate the complexities of our partner's long-lost sibling being a threat to our marriage, it's essential to prioritize self-care practices that promote emotional well-being. Think about it. When faced with unexpected challenges like this, our bodies go into survival mode. Our stress levels skyrocket, and before we know it, we're running on fumes. I remember when I first found out about my partner's long-lost sibling. I felt like I was walking on eggshells. Every conversation, every encounter, felt like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. But what I did next was crucial. I made self-care a non-negotiable part of my daily routine. I started with small things, taking short walks during the day, practicing deep breathing exercises before bed, and engaging in activities that brought me joy, like painting or reading. By prioritizing my emotional well-being, I felt more grounded and better equipped to handle the stress and uncertainty that came with this situation. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present and taking care of yourself during challenging times. As we navigate the complexities of relationships, it's essential to acknowledge that some partners may unknowingly enable or tolerate manipulative behavior from their sibling or other family members. I've seen this play out in my own life, where my partner's long-lost sibling would often reach out, making empty promises and fueling drama. At first, my partner would get defensive, trying to prove a point, but eventually they'd cave in, feeling guilty for not being there for their sibling. This pattern can be damaging to our relationships, as it creates an atmosphere of resentment and anxiety. We start to feel like we're walking on eggshells, never knowing when the next drama-filled conversation will erupt. It's essential to recognize that enabling or tolerating this behavior is often rooted in a deep-seated desire to maintain peace and avoid conflict. For instance, my partner would often say things like, "My sibling is going through a tough time," or "they're just trying to reconnect." While these intentions may be genuine, they can also be used as excuses to manipulate and control our partner's emotions. By acknowledging this gray area between loyalty and enabling, we can begin to set healthy boundaries and prioritize our own needs in the relationship. As we navigate these complex family dynamics, it's essential to recognize the gray area between loyalty and enabling. We often find ourselves caught in the middle, trying to balance our love for our partner with the need to protect ourselves from hurtful situations. I remember when my partner's long-lost sibling reappeared in our lives, claiming they needed help with a financial emergency. At first we were sympathetic, but soon their requests became increasingly invasive, making us feel like we were being pulled into a toxic vortex. As the tension built, I realized that I was allowing this person to dictate how I felt about my own marriage. It was as if they had the power to make me doubt our love and commitment to each other. I remember feeling so torn, like I was walking a tightrope between my love for him and the uncertainty that this long-lost sibling brought into our marriage. Every time his family would reach out, he'd get this distant look in his eyes, and I could sense the guilt and responsibility weighing on him. He'd try to brush it off as just family stuff, but I knew better. As I reflect on the journey we've been on, I'm reminded that family dynamics can be both a blessing and a curse. My partner's long-lost sibling may have been a thorn in our side, but their presence also forced us to confront the complexities of our own family histories. We had to navigate the emotional baggage of our pasts and figure out how to move forward together. For me, it was about learning to prioritize my relationship over petty squabbles with his sibling. I realized that holding on to resentment wasn't worth damaging the foundation of our marriage. My partner learned to take responsibility for his actions and communicate more openly with me about his family's influence on our lives. It's a delicate balance, but one that's essential in any long-term relationship. As I look back, I'm grateful for the tough conversations we had. They made us stronger as a team. If you're dealing with similar issues, my advice is to stay vigilant and communicate openly with your partner. Don't be afraid to address sensitive topics head-on. It may just save your marriage in the long run. As Emily sat on the couch, surrounded by the quiet of her once harmonious home, she realized that nothing would ever be the same. The arrival of her husband's long-lost sibling had awakened a Pandora's box of emotions and secrets. It was a harsh reminder that no matter how strong our relationships may seem, there are always hidden cracks waiting to surface. Emily's story serves as a poignant warning. In the pursuit of perfect love, we must not overlook the imperfections that make us human. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you're still with me, it means you care about the complexities of love and relationships. Let's continue this conversation together. Subscribe now to stay updated on more real-life relationship dramas.